Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking Chapter 10 of our microeconomic source text to explore a dynamic that impacts literally almost every single transaction we make. We're talking about market power. Who really holds it and why? To figure this out, we're going to look closely at two completely opposite ends of the economic spectrum to understand exactly how this power gets distributed.
Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever wondered why some companies seem to just charge whatever they want for a product, while other businesses are at the complete mercy of the market, scrambling to match the going rate just to survive? I mean, why does a local farmer have to sell their crop at the exact same price as every other farmer out there, while a giant utility provider seemingly dictates the cost of your electricity with an iron fist? Well, it all comes down to the underlying structure of the market they operate in.
To make sense of this, here's our roadmap for today. First, defining market structure. Second, the competitive ideal. Third, the absolute monopoly. And fourth, comparing the extremes.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, defining market structure. Now, what's really interesting about this is that any market, no matter what is being sold, is built on four major organizational features. First up, the number and relative sizes of sellers and buyers in the space. Second, the degree of product differentiation. Basically, how different is one seller's product from another's? Third, the availability of information. Do the buyers and sellers actually know everything about the market conditions? And fourth, the barriers to entry and exit. How hard is it for a new competitor to just set up shop? These four features are the exact ingredients, the core dials really, that dictate what kind of market a business operates in.
Moving right along to Section 2, the competitive ideal.
So what happens when we crank all those dials to create a hyper-competitive environment? Well, in the spectrum of market structures, perfect competition sits at one extreme end. Our source text defines this as a market with a massive number of small firms. In fact, there are so many firms that no single firm can influence the market price. None. They are completely powerless. Economists call them price takers. They literally just look at the market, see what the going rate is, and take it. It's an absolutely brutal environment for profit margins, because if they try to charge even a single penny more, buyers will instantly go to one of the countless other sellers.
Now let's shift gears for Section 3, the absolute monopoly. All right, let's strip all of that intense competition away and swing the pendulum to the exact opposite end of the spectrum. The word itself is derived from the Greek monos, for single, and polein, to sell. And a monopoly is quite literally just that. A single seller of a good or service with absolutely no close substitutes. It is, by definition, a market of one. So the crucial point is how being the only seller gives the firm massive power. In a monopoly, the monopolistic firm is the industry. Because of this, the overall market demand for the good is exactly the same as the firm's demand, which means it has a downward-sloping demand curve. This transforms the firm into a powerful price setter. When they decide on a price, the quantity sold then depends entirely on market demand. And if the demand for their product is highly inelastic, meaning people really need it and can't just swap it for something else, the monopolist holds all the cards. They can deliberately reduce the quantity they supply to the market just to drive up the price and absolutely maximize their profits. Which brings us to the climax of today's explainer, Section 4, comparing the extremes.
Now that we have a handle on these two theoretical heavyweights, let's set up a methodical, point-by-point showdown based on those original market features we talked about. Let's start with the sheer number of firms and their control over price. In perfect competition, you have a massive number of sellers, and because of that, they have absolutely zero control over price. They are pure price takers. The monopoly? Polar opposite. One firm, they are the price setters and have considerable control over the price. Though it's worth noting, this control is ultimately limited by what the overall market demand will bear. Let's move on and see how this builds, because this totally changes the nature of the product itself. In a perfectly competitive market, products are homogeneous. They're identical, standardized commodities. One firm's product is indistinguishable from another's. But under a monopoly, the product is entirely unique. There are no close substitutes available anywhere, and the firm often uses branding to further protect its unique status in the minds of consumers.
And then we have a massive difference in this tug-of-war, barriers to entry. This dictates who gets to play the game. For perfect competition, entry is completely free. Anyone can easily set up shop and join the market tomorrow. But for a monopoly, the gates are bolted shut. Entry is completely blocked. Monopolies are basically protected fortresses, existing precisely because there are huge barriers preventing any new competitors from breaking in.
And this brilliantly illustrates the math behind the scenes when we look at the demand curve. For our perfectly competitive firm, the demand curve is just a flat, horizontal line. It is perfectly elastic, because if they raise the price even a fraction, their demand drops instantly to zero. But for the monopoly, because they are the market, their demand curve equals the market demand curve. It slopes downward, allowing them to calculate the exact sweet spot where reducing supply will get them the highest possible price. So wrapping up the showdown with a couple of final critical differences. When it comes to long-run economic profit, perfect competition drives it straight down to zero, what we call normal profit, because anyone can enter the market and compete. But a monopoly, safely behind its blocked entry, can sustain positive long-run economic profits. And what about collusion, where firms secretly team up to fix prices? Well, in perfect competition, there are way too many firms, it's impossible to coordinate. For monopoly, there's nobody else to team up with, so it's totally irrelevant. Interestingly, though, according to our source text, both extremes do share one assumption: complete or full information, meaning everyone has perfect knowledge of market conditions.
So we've got these perfectly clean mathematical textbook definitions, but let's bring this back to reality. Our source text gives us a crucial reality check. Defining a monopoly depends entirely on how broadly you define the market itself. A true monopoly really depends on how we draw the geographical or product borders around a specific market. Which leaves us with this pretty provocative question directly from the source material to end on. Could a shop in a remote and isolated rural area act as a monopoly? I mean, if you need a specific good and there's only one store for 100 miles, aren't they the single seller? Do they hold the power of a price setter in that specific geographical market? It really invites you to look around your own town, look at the businesses you deal with every day, and question, who really holds the market power in your life? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it totally shifted the way you view the markets around you. Keep questioning and keep learning.